Well, I thought it might be useful to give you an example of a published paper, a scientific report. We will follow the same format that your text gives you in the syllabus, and nevertheless, there may be some small changes. Now, each journal and each reporting agency requires a slightly different format, but they're basically all the same. The first thing you'll notice is that there may be a journal involved. This is called a peer-reviewed journal. This one happens to be Arctic, which is the official journal of the Arctic Institute of North America, an international company. And you can see that this was volume 44, December 1991, shortly after the Chernobyl accident. The first element of your paper then will be the title. And you'll want to keep your title, hopefully, as short as possible. You will probably notice, if you have searched some of the literature already, that some titles are horribly long, to the point where they're almost unreadable. I urge you to keep your title, the shorter the better. The next point of the paper is the list of authors. In your case, it will be your name. In this case, we have the 4 authors, and the address usually goes in the superscripts at the bottom of the page. For your paper in this course, you will have your name, the course, the Oceans, MSL 111X, and the date. That's all that you will need for your paper. The next important aspect of your paper will be the abstract. Now, this is about the only thing that the public will read. People are busy, and yet they want to be kept informed. And so the abstract is where you will very briefly describe what it is you did and what you concluded. A bad abstract is one that just said, this is what I'm going to do or have done. And the paper will describe it. That tells us nothing. It should be very definitive, and we'll help you write that. There is a separate module on the abstract. The next part of your paper will be the introduction. Now, the introduction is very important. It tells your audience what's the basic question you're going to pursue in your research. Why is it important? So you need to get that established. But you're not doing it in a vacuum when you do this. Other people have had experience in probably just about every question you could think about asking. And so you want to make sure that in your research, that is in your case, the library research, you have looked at what other researchers have done. And there surely will be those researchers. You can see in this paper right away, someone has already talked about the contribution of radiation dose to humans, a researcher by the name of Goldman. So in Goldman's, we make sure that we have referenced Dr. Goldman. After the introduction, you can see the addresses of the authors here. Now, you will probably have an opportunity to use tables and figures in your paper. You want to be sure that if you do, that the figures are relevant to the question you're asking, not just decoration. You'll notice that if you're writing an op-ed piece for the newspaper or something for the popular magazine that you might put the picture of a whale in there, or a figure, some funny figure. This is not appropriate for a scientific journal. Make sure that whatever it is you're showing is really relevant to what it is you're trying to establish. Also, make sure that your figures are well labeled, and again, short or appropriate to what you're trying to do. If you have tables, these also should be kept very well designed so that they show everything without really producing a lot of extraneous material. Here we have the location of where the samples were collected, then the concentration with the error limits, and other information as needed. Now, after you have described your materials and methods for your research, and this will be a short section for your work, since you're definitely primarily going to have a library search. Then you will go to the results. So you'll notice here that we have in our paper results and discussion. Well, the journal encourages that. That's part of the journal rules. We would like to have you separate the results from the discussion so that you clearly understand the difference between the two. And another reason for doing this, it is technically a bit more difficult to write a results and discussion section that is credible and also readable, and takes a bit of experience doing this, so that I would not like to have you do this in this course. So please keep the results and the discussion separate. Now, the results drive the discussion. In other words, you have to have discovered something through your literature search in order to discuss it. So please keep them separate. Here we have the results and the discussion. From here we go to the next section, which is the conclusions. Now, the final part of your paper, after you have discussed what it is you found in your results section, and you have completed your discussions section, then it is customary to write a conclusions. Again, this is another part of a paper, aside from the abstract, that most readers will go to. If they are seriously interested in the work, then they will find that interest piqued by going to the abstract and conclusions, and then go back and read the total paper. But this is very important. There are various services that abstract scientific papers even further, and they will do the same thing by going to the abstracts of numerous papers and their conclusions, and then publishing short summaries for the scientific community. The next section is called acknowledgments, and from here we want to be sure that we do this. Now, you probably aren't used to putting acknowledgments in papers that you have written through your college career, but in the technical world, in the professional journals and professional reports, all of them will have an acknowledgement sections. In general, we'll want to discuss those who have provided essential services, for example, in this paper, or who paid to supported the work through various research grants and contracts. So we want to make sure that those agencies or foundations are thanked for that. And then finally, we want to produce our references. Now, in your references section, you should follow the APA rules, which would be preferable. However, again, I reiterate, if you use other generally accepted rules such as MLA, that's acceptable too, as long as you are consistent. However, the scientific community would prefer the APA rules. Several journals have their own specific rules, but they don't vary much from what you see here. So you'll want to make sure that your references reference the authors, the date, the title, where it was published, and where that can be found.